Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
I had several people send me a story of Ars Technica, and I apologize, I did not write their names down. But San Diego's spying streetlights are stuck switched on despite a directive that they be turned off. This is a crazy story. In San Diego, Kate Cox wrote the story, but they installed a smart streetlight network that included cameras. And some people decided they didn't like being watched all the time when they were out and about. So the city decided to shut off the cameras, but found out they can't do that without shutting off the lights. Over the past few years, streetlights in the city of San Diego have become smart. Everything's becoming smart. Equipped with a slate of cameras and sensors that report back data on the city and the people who live there. Following protests from privacy activists, the city mayor ordered the network disabled, but it turns out the city can't turn the cameras off without plunging the city into literal darkness. So, we all know there's good things that cameras could do. So, for instance, there's an intersection. Lots of traffic this way, very little traffic this way. A camera watching that intersection might figure that out and go, oh, okay, let's just, keep the lights here green longer than the lights here. That's all. And that makes complete sense to most people. But thousands of streetlight cameras are supposed to be disabled this fall, according to the Voice of San Diego. But there's no software switch for doing so. And of course, there's no mechanical switch either, other than the big kill switch that shuts the whole thing off. In lieu of disabling the cameras, the vendor responsible for them at the time instead simply cut off the city's network access to devices, but they're still on. The Smart Streetlight program began 5 years ago in 2015 when San Diego mayor announced a new partnership with GE Lighting to deploy a software-defined lighting technology that will help San Diego solve some of the city's infrastructure challenges. As the city government describes the proposal, San Diego's initial plan to convert to LED streetlights evolved to include a connected digital infrastructure full of sensors and cameras. More than 3,000 of the sensor-enabled smart lights were installed all around the city, and the information that they collect, which is theoretically anonymous, is supposed to help the city gain valuable data used for urban planning purposes such as traffic management. But of course, anything we've learned from things like Amazon Ring, the police tend to view networks of connected cameras as just a great trove of evidence. So too in San Diego, local police used footage from the citywide surveillance network at least 400 times since 2018. Privacy and civil rights advocates have pushed back, and a group called San Diegans for Open Government sued the city last December, alleging that the city was violating the law by failing to provide information about or records from the Smart Streetlight program. The city council unanimously suspended funding for the Smart Streetlight program, and the mayor in September ordered the network be shut down until such time as the city leadership could craft an ordinance governing the use of such surveillance technology. And trust me, you want to see something happen really, really slowly? Ask a city council to craft an ordinance. San Diego's original contract was with GE Lighting. GE, however, has been selling off businesses because of debt issues, so they sold off that division. The City IQ Smart City platform that GE developed for them was sold to a firm called Ubiquia, and it's not spelled the way you'd think. It has the letter C in there. But that happened in May for an undisclosed sum. And in September, a city committee was supposed to sign a new 4-year contract with Ubiquia, but instead dropped the deal at the last minute when the mayor's office announced suspension of the program. The company could not shut off the cameras because they share the same power supply as the lights themselves. Who'd have thought? Putting a power switch in a camera. It's crazy. I'm talking to a camera and I can actually see the power switch. That's funny. According to reporting by the Voice of San Diego, the CEO of the company told city officials, if you want us to create a software switch, we can write custom code and deploy it. The units were not designed for this originally, and you can bet that that'll cost some money for them to write and deploy custom code. Now, that'll happen faster than the city council crafting an ordinance, but it'll be much more expensive. The cameras, meanwhile, are still collecting footage. That footage is still being retained, and it's being held for 5 days before it gets automatically deleted. But of course, in those 5 days is when the police look at it. So the city had AT&T deactivate the data connection to the cameras instead. So the footage they're still collecting simply doesn't travel to the servers of the city. So it's unclear actually who gets to see it, if anybody at all. But it's a weird situation because, it's one of those things. How expensive would it have been for them to write into the code, Here's how you shut the lights off. Here's how you shut the cameras off. I mean, lights have got on and off switches. I counted. There's 16 lights in this room. 16 lights in this room. Each of them has an on-off switch. There's one camera in the room. It has an on-off switch. But again, I understand that my system in here is not smart in that sense. And so it seems odd. But as of right now, there is this big network in San Diego of an interconnected and intelligent, smart lighting system. And it's integrated with sensors and cameras. And like I said, there are a lot of good uses for these things. And on some levels, surveillance might not be a bad thing either, depending on what's being surveilled, right? But I think most people in America think that when you're walking down the street, minding your own business, you shouldn't necessarily be surveilled by a bunch of cameras and so on just to watch you for the sake of watching you. Americans want to be let alone. It's a famous quote, goes way back, the right to be let alone. And the idea that you won't be recorded and filmed and everything everywhere you go. So there are countries that famously do that. And most of us look at those countries and go, ooh, we don't want that to happen here. And so, I've had people ask me, they say, Steve, you claim you don't have traffic cameras in Michigan. We don't. They go, but I've gone to Michigan, I drive through intersections and there's traffic cameras. Well, those aren't red light cameras in the sense that they issue tickets. Those are cameras that watch, they're sensors that watch the intersection and measure traffic. If there's no traffic going one way, it'll presumably change the timing of the lights if it can do that. But they're not recording you, they're not filming you, and they're not issuing tickets. I think that's probably the ultimate insult. It's when a device watches you, deems you guilty of something, and sends you a ticket. That's the ultimate. But I think that a lot of people also don't like the idea of, like, I'm walking down a city street, and all of a sudden I realize these little boxes up there watching me, recording me. And like I said, I can see some buildings, obviously, around your house. You can put up cameras and film your own property. If you have a business, you can have cameras inside the business for surveillance. That's a different matter. I'm simply talking about you're walking down Main Street, USA, or you're sitting in the central park of the city, and you like to think that you're enjoying yourself, and then you realize you're being watched and filmed, and that would be a problem. So it is strange to me that someone installed this huge network. I'd like to know how much it cost. I didn't see a number in the story, but I bet it was expensive. With General Electric, who has since spun it off to another company. But there are more than 3,000 sensor-enabled smart lights, and the sensors and cameras accompany those lights, but they can't be shut off without shutting the whole thing down, which sounds a lot like Big Brother. Isn't that something Big Brother would do? You want the lights on, right? Well, along with the lights, you get sensors and cameras. So there's a problem there. So Ars Technica is on the story. I will continue to follow it. Kate Cox wrote it. And so San Diego spying streetlights stuck switched on despite directive. Sometimes sharing a power supply is a little too efficient. There you go. Questions or comments, put them below. Otherwise, I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. I'm not saying, I'm just saying.